authentically you. 'Cause now is your season to live out your reason. Just be you. How you gonna leave your imprint on this world? Be authentically you. 'Cause now is your season to live out your reason. Just be you. How you gonna leave your imprint on this world?
Welcome to another session of Authentically You Imprint.
Yeah. Hey, how's everybody doing? Yeah, it's been a little while since we've been here. We got a new year that came in. We're going to update you guys on a lot of things that's been happening. We have not been able to do the show as we normally do, but God has been good to us. Absolutely. In the meanwhile.
Absolutely.
Just to update you real quick, on January the 17th, I had a heart attack. And so we haven't been doing a lot of stuff that we've been doing. I'm in rehab, doing great now. We're doing great, and we're moving on. So for all our imprint audience who have not been following us on Midweek Motivation, now you're up to date. Go ahead.
Wow. Yeah. What an introduction, right? So yes, we have definitely missed being here with you all. Here at the Imprint show, our main purpose is to spotlight these wonderful people who are out there in their neighborhood, on their street, in their part of the world, doing fantastic things.
Whatever they do, wherever they're
swimming in their lane and just making it happen. But 9 times out of 10, mainstream media would never pick them up. We want to give them a voice here on the Authentically You Imprint. The bottom line for the Imprint show is, how will you leave your imprint on this world? Everyone leaves an imprint. How will you leave yours? You have a choice. You have a say in that. And so that's what the Imprint show is all about. And we are extremely happy today to welcome to the show Kristen Mallory.
Yeah, welcome. Listen, favor is not fair. Listen, we're in probably about his 8th show or 6th show over here. And if you notice, not all have been family, but we have had the privilege of having some family on that has been doing amazing things. Yes. We are super proud.
Yes.
We're overjoyed that we can just reach out in the family today. Our niece is with us today.
And we are super excited. Welcome to the show, Kristen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It is definitely our pleasure. There are so many ways that we could go in this conversation, but what I really want to focus on in this conversation, or spotlight in this conversation, is your passion for teaching.
Ooh.
That passion for teaching has taken you all over the world. So tell me, what was it that fed your passion for teaching?
Well, as you all know, on my mom's side, we have a lot of teachers. My great aunt's teacher. My mom was I believe she was a 2nd or 3rd grade teacher before she switched over to becoming a librarian. My cousin's a teacher. My 2nd oldest sister is a teacher. My oldest sister is a teacher. So it was always there. Yeah. But just like with anything, like, you try to run from it because you're like, this is not going to be me. This is not going to define, who I am. I'm going to go out and I'm going to make my own path. And so no matter what I did, no matter like whether I was at work or whether I was in a classroom, I will always get the response that, are you a teacher? Or do you teach?
Right.
And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I want to do something other than teaching. So I went to school. I got my bachelor's in web design, and even though I liked it, it wasn't something that I was really, gung-ho about. And I'll try to make this as short as I can. So what eventually ended up happening was I wasn't able to find a job here. So I moved out with my older sister in Nashville, Tennessee, and there I decided to reconnect with God, take more time reading the Bible, take more time praying and like actually walking in my faith, as opposed to just doing like a shallow pray here, pray there, just, go to church, when you feel like it, or, just like I really, really wanted to connect with God. And I knew that she was like my go-to person. She has been my shepherd since I was in diapers. Like she taught me about God. Everything that I needed to know, I went to her. So when I arrived in Nashville, I heard a voice in the back of my head saying, I'm going to take you to a place where it will just be me and you. I was like, so this place, I was like, are we talking like New York, or are we talking Florida, California? Like, where are we going with this guy? And I knew it was him, but it was just like, I just landed in Nashville, like what's going on? So fast forward my second year being out there, my sister and I were sitting on the couch, and I, expressed my desire to just travel. And so she just looked over at me and said, well, why don't you teach? I was like, I'm not a teacher. I don't teach. That's not my thing.
Again, I'm not a teacher.
Right. And so like we just kind of dropped it, didn't think about it anymore. And then we were watching another movie, and I had expressed it again, and she's like, why don't you go teach? And I'm like, okay. And so like I started looking into programs, and I found one that was really, really good. It was able to be extremely flexible, and I received my TOEFL certificate. And then came where I was going to teach, and I narrowed it down to China, Japan, and Korea. Well, at that time, like I was really much into K-pop, like I was trying Korean food, so I was just like, why not?
Right.
And so, I prayed about it, like I really, set conditions. Like I woke up every morning to pray, like, God, let this be something that you want me to do and not something that I want. You know what I mean? Like, let me want what you want for my life. And so I prayed. I was like, if I'm supposed to go to Korea, let everything let my work and my, my prayers, let it be answered, and like, let everything essentially work out. And it did. So the next thing I know, I'm on a plane and I'm going over to Korea to teach, which is something I haven't done. And the first time they put me in the classroom, I kid you not, I was standing in a corner like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
Like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Right. But eventually it started to come naturally to me. Like like it just came out. Like every day I would pray, like, God, let me do this right. Because I'm in a country where they don't speak my language. I have to, become accustomed to their ways and, their way of teaching. So like, just God help me. Through that.
Absolutely.
And then eventually the talent just came out.
Wow.
And, like I've never received like so much love from other people, especially, the younger ones, and the ones who, are fluent and the ones who are not. They would just always say, because the teacher, I love you. And they would do like the little heart and,
I love that.
And it felt really, really good. Like I had the opportunity, to teach kids from as young as kindergarten all the way up to last year, middle schoolers who were about to go into high school. Because the school where I taught at, we only accommodated elementary and middle. So we didn't, go off into high school. And some of my students were like, I wish I could take you with me. And I was like, I know, but, there are others who need, my attention and my guidance. But, like I would exchange phone numbers with them. Sometimes they'll text me, like, I have a question about this teacher. Can you help me? And, so after that, like, I just realized that I was like, hey, like, it's amazing how, God will put you in a situation to prepare you for something. But because you're so in your own thoughts, you're like, God, whatever. And like, you'll go into your own thing. And then like you circle back to it. And I'm like, oh, well, I had to
hold
listen
that
to
thought right there for a minute, because we got to take a short commercial break. Listen, I'm telling y'all, this
she's
is
passionate
good.
about this, right?
This is real good. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
What is it that inspires passion? That thing that keeps us from thinking that we know it all, but instead makes us say, I have to know more. What is it that makes us keep trying after we've fallen time and time again? It's the thing that makes us smile after we finally figured it out. when what used to be difficult is now second nature. It's the joy of knowing our hard work was not in vain, but instead has made us better as people. It's the beauty of learning.
Listen, hey, we're back. Let me just bring y'all exactly where we was. God snatched her from Richmond, Virginia, took her all the way to Nashville, Tennessee. From Nashville, Tennessee, where she wasn't sure what she was going to do, God uprooted her and moved her all the way to Korea.
Go.
Don't tell me that God ain't good. Listen, go ahead and pick up from there.
So from there, I had the opportunity to teach at different schools, and even though I didn't feel, confident in my abilities, because you always feel, even if you are walking in God's purpose, you always sometimes feel inadequate. You know what I mean? Like, you'll look around at, other people and you'll be like, oh, why can't I, teach like them? Or why can't I talk like them? Why can't I, have more charm like them? But we all know that God equips you with what you need. So even though there were other teachers who, were better at speaking or better at, giving examples, I was always the teacher that the kids always had fun with. And like, we would sit down and just have regular conversations about, no matter how mundane or how controversial the topic was, because sometimes in my classroom I was a little bit controversial, just so that they could step outside of their comfort zone. I remember explaining, one of my students telling me that in the classroom we don't have the choice to say no to the teacher. And to me, like, that was interesting, because I'm like, well, what if I have an opinion that you don't agree with? They were like, teacher, you're always right. You don't have a right to say no. And so I told my students, I was like, in my class, you are allowed to say no, respectfully. But if I say something that you don't agree with, let's open it up and, let's have a conversation, because your voice matters. When you go out into the world, people are going to expect for you to have opinions and to be able to voice them. Like, don't always go with the grain. If you feel strongly about something, voice yourself.
Absolutely.
And so, like, one of my students actually cried when I told her that, because she always felt like she didn't have a voice. And I'm like, no, in my classroom, I am your teacher. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to teach you how to use your voice. Like, yes, you're learning English, but English is so much more than that. It's more than just writing an essay. It's more than just answering questions. If you all have the heart to travel to America,
right,
you have to be able to do that. And so, like, that's where I got the most joy. So when I came back because of COVID, I was like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do with these 3 wonderful years that I've had of teaching? Do I just throw them away, or do I just, keep going? Right. And so I applied to the job where I'm at now, where I teach, surprisingly, I teach 4-year-olds. So I've gone younger. And I will say that it has been an eye-opening experience. It has definitely taught me patience, a lot of patience, because they are 4. They don't have the same experience as a 31-year-old or a 14-year-old. Think the world is still new to them. They don't think the same way that you think. Recently, one of my kids was really surprised and shocked to find out that I had parents, and I was like, "What? Where did you think I come from?" like where did you? And they were like, well, I don't know, but I thought teachers don't have parents. And I'm like, huh. And that's where their mind is, and that's where you, as a teacher, you have to meet them there. They don't understand why Christmas only comes once a year. To them, it should be every day. I don't understand why it's not every day. And it's like, well, there are 365 days in a year, and Christmas is only on this day. So in order for us to get that, they don't understand it. And then it also has, shed light on kids' behavior as well. Because, sometimes, when kids act out, you just think like, oh my gosh, like they're terrible kids. Like, that's 9 times out of 10, that's not the case.
Not the case, yeah.
At this age, they don't know how to express themselves. They don't know what jealousy is. They don't know what anger is. They don't know you know, what feeling nervous or anxious or even, you know, surprised feels like. They just know happy, sad, and angry. So they might, you know, encounter something different and they express it, how they express it might be anger. And it's just like, no, it's not anger. It's more, you know, misunderstanding. That's what it is. And so I, as a teacher, have to essentially build them from the ground up. And it's just, the only thing that I can say is that it's been a journey, especially having to talk to parents and then like seeing them grow. Oh my gosh, I'm so not ready for graduation this year because I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. Like it's gonna be just waterworks, because from where they were at, my kids now, from where they were at the beginning to where they are now, like you can definitely see the growth. And I'm just like, I didn't birth these kids, but they're definitely mine. So,
that takes a special heart for real. But listen, we are in 176 countries. Right? So somebody's probably watching this in Korea, and they probably saying, "That's the lady that taught my child to say no." We don't say that here in Korea. But she taught them. You know, it's amazing once we see the cultural differences. And what discipline does and what behavior does. I heard you, that you gave your kids an opportunity to express themselves, which means it's the same way we have to do with life. We have to balance it out.
Exactly.
While there are cultural things that are good for us, there are cultural things that don't allow us to grow and express our opinion. So you go to Korea and you have a whole different set of rules. It's not behavioral. It's not everything, because they're so respectful. Then you come back to America and you have the opposite. where you try to teach the kids you can say something other than no.
Other than no.
You know? You don't know. You know, so we're trying to teach you. And that's an amazing thing that you have that experience and the difference in the culture and how you're able to deal with kids better because you've seen both sides.
Yes.
Right.
So, you don't automatically call and say, this kid needs to go on Ritalin. This kid has a behavioral problem. They need to go on Ritalin. No. They express themselves the best they know how. And we as adults have to take our time and really, really focus in and give them an opportunity to grow.
Absolutely.
And have their own personality.
And we grow in the process.
And we grow in the process as we go. It's amazing how God does things and how he brings us to where we are. I mean, talk a little bit more about you and God's, your isolation in Korea. I took you from Tennessee and say, I'm going to take you to place. It has to be rough when he put you somewhere where you don't really know the language.
And know any other person.
And you really have to talk to God.
Yeah.
Right. So within that, when I first arrived, first off, there was no cultural shock for me because I did my research before I came out there so that I wouldn't, you know how you can't prepare for everything, but you try to prepare the best that you can.
Right.
So when I was out there, like at first, like it was a wonderland. Like I had never, been in another country. I had never, I've been able to communicate with somebody, who doesn't speak my, like it was just crazy. So those first 6 months were just great. But then, over there, it's a completely homogenous country, which means that everybody that you run into, well, not everybody, but most of the people that you run into are Korean. They don't look like you. They don't have the same hair. They don't have, the same experiences. They don't enjoy the same things that you do because, they're essentially in their country. They like what they like. They do what you do. So, you're the foreigner there. And plenty of times, like, mom would call me just out of concern, like, how are you? Because I know that there's nobody there who looks like you. Absolutely. So then in those instances, what do you do? And whenever I would feel lonely or upset or like disheartened, I would just, pray to God. Like first I would let him know essentially what my concerns were, God, like I'm out here and, I trust you 1,000%, but, I don't have my sister. I don't have my mother, I don't have my family. So what do I do in this situation? And surprisingly, he sent me an answer. One of my really good friends over there, I met her while I was getting food, and she was a Christian, but like I didn't know at the time. And hopefully you guys will get a chance to talk to her. She said when she first saw me, I came into her shop. She said when I looked up, she said there was a white halo over your head.
Come through.
And she was like, you know, like when she first saw me, she was just like, oh my gosh. And I didn't know this, you know, until later on, but she was super friendly. You know, she was the first, you know, person outside of my coworkers that, you know, would check in on me, you know, daily just to see how I was doing, you know. And when I told her my story, she said her heart was really, really moved. And she said, I would like to invite you to, you know, my church. She was like, if you don't like it, you know, that's fine. But, you know, like, your story is just so amazing. I think, you know, like the church that I attend would be, you know, a good place for you to call home.
Okay.
And it was like, till this day, I'm still connected to her church. It's a international church, and they have, you know, locations in different countries, and they have one here, but the closest one is in Atlanta. So online, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, but while I was out there, I got to experience God in a whole new way, because out there, they believe in God, you know, 150%. You know, they do things over here that we would consider, you know, a little bit abnormal. One of the things that they do is pre-dawn prayer. They get up in the morning at 3:00 in the morning. They go to church. They listen to, you know, like a morning message, and they pray. Like that's what they did. Right. And that's what I did the whole 3 years out there. I was like, this is crazy, but okay. And like I received, you know, so much inspiration, so much revelation, and a deeper understanding of God because of it. You know, out there, when I tell you that they love God, like they sing to him every day. I had a friend, every time she would go out to eat, it didn't matter what anybody else, you know, thought of her when she did this, but she would always set a plate for God. So when she would go to a restaurant, she would set a plate for her, and she would set a plate for God, you know, and like to the point where like she would order food that would be for 2 people, and like she would serve him. Like she was like, I understand that he's not there physically. I understand that he doesn't eat physical food, but if I'm supposed to believe that God is in my life and he is with me every day, I have to treat him as such. Wow. She has a special chair for him. You know, like I have friends that just do, you know, just, I wouldn't say crazy, because I don't think it is, but it's just the length that they go through in order to, you know, let God, like, God, I see you and I acknowledge you, and I know that you're here. Let me show you. I have friends that cook. I have friends that have like special blankets for him, you know, like a special chair. So, you know, and seeing all of that, it's a bit odd because, you know, we don't do that. You know, like we might call his name, you know, here and there, especially when we're in tough situations, but to, you know, lie in a bed and leave a space for him to, you know, lay down, or, you know, just do all kinds of things that you would do if another person was with you. Like it was really, really mind blowing. So I took that and tried to implement it, you know, every day in my life as well, because it helped me to not necessarily change my view of God, because he's still omnipotent, omniscient. He still is, you know, the great I am, you know, but just to be more acknowledgeable of him. So yeah, that, and I believe that that's what God was really trying to get me to see and understand while I was out there. Like, you may think that you're alone, but you're not. Like, I'm here with you. Acknowledge me, and, you know, like, I will take care of you. So, yeah.
I love that story.
Wow, you know, that is amazing.
He's always present.
The very concept of it is, and it's biblical. He tells us that he would never leave us nor forsake us. And he let us know that he is also a person. Although he's both person and he's everywhere that we are. Wherever we go, we take him. If we in America would have that idea in our mind, there's a lot of things we would not get into.
Yeah.
Because if we practice every day reserving the space for God,
Acknowledge
Right.
the presence of
wherever
God
you are.
all the time.
You know, I can't be mean to people.
Right. Because he's standing right there. You know what I mean?
He's standing right here, and we know that he is, but our concept is that, you know, we can hide from him, or we can say, listen, God, I'll be right back.
Right.
I'm going to deal with this situation my way,
Right.
and I'll be right back. You know,
Right.
yeah.
That is so amazing.
That is such a prolific demonstration of God being with us, not only with us, but in us and in our everyday lives.
I love it.
I mean, if we could grasp that concept, and I know
change our world.
We here in America, we're spoiled to the death. We're spoiled to the place where we actually, if we look at it, we put a lot of idols in front of God.
Right.
Because we have all these luxuries. You know, luxury become our idol. So instead of preparing a place for God, you know, we get more expensive dishes and sit them down there and do whatever we want to do. But if we were to conceive the fact that God is always with us, he's always present with us. And if we live like that and really believed it, then we would have to be good to people.
Exactly.
Acknowledge his presence everywhere you are.
Yeah,
exactly. Life changing.
Yeah, I love that concept. It is actually life changing, and you're right. A lot of people would think that it's strange and it's weird when for me to after you describe it, you know. And when you first said it, I was like, yeah, okay.
A little bit weird.
But then the more you talk about it and you think about it, I'm like, wait a minute, this is the way we should be.
This is the way we should be.
And we look at them as weird, but they actually believe the word of God.
Yeah.
They actually believe God in his word, that you would never leave me. You won't leave me by myself. If I'm in this, God, you in it. So I ain't got to worry about running to you with a whole bunch of stuff as if you do.
Exactly.
God, you was there with me. You heard what they said.
Right there with
God, you with me. You know what they did to me.
Yeah.
I ain't got to explain that to you. I got to tell you, you got to come to my rescue, God.
Right.
Because they're treating. I mean, it is amazing.
That
concept is beautiful.
We're gonna be using it.
And it is totally amazing, and especially as a young person for God to take you away and then to God to demonstrate Himself to you in that manner.
Unconditional
says that again, it's not fair. Says that God loved you so much.
So much.
He said, listen, I don't want you to get confused with American culture. I need to take you and show you what it's like to be with me. And for me to be with you. So it comes to life. When mother and father forsake you, then the Lord himself will take you up, because there's nothing that can happen to me that God don't know about. Come back to America and look at people and laugh because they're looking at your face and want to do harm to you, and the whole time you're smiling.
Can't even do it.
Saying, you have no idea who's with me.
Right here with me. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Oh my goodness.
Y'all better go ahead and say something else, because I love that. I can go from right there and just take it on in, because that's good. That is good.
Wow. So when the pandemic began, you were actually in Korea.
Yeah.
So take us through your experience with that, and where you were mentally, physically, emotionally, as that was happening and the world was shutting down, and you were go through all that.
So when that started to happen, it didn't really it hadn't hit Korea as hard as it's been hit now. And at that time I had moved from one city to another city so I could be closer to the church that I was attending while I was out there. And I had, 2 other roommates. So when the pandemic hit, we noticed that there was a change, but it wasn't as shocking as it was with the rest of the world, because over there they wear masks. And it could be for anything. If you have allergies, it's not really uncommon for you to see anybody with a mask on. If you have allergies, if you have asthma, some girls, when they step out of the house and they don't have makeup on, they'll put a mask on. With the kids, like they'll try to hide their acne, with the mask. Like it was many different reasons. So when the coronavirus hit, you start to see masks more than usual, but it it wasn't out of the norm for us. So, we didn't pay any attention to it. We just kind of took it as, like it was just like a common cold, or like it was the flu, like the cases weren't that high. It hadn't really, we would have like 1 or 2 cases, a week or like a month. So it didn't really affect me as much as it did later on. So as it's starting to become a thing, I noticed that, like my director at that time would, have hand sanitizer everywhere, because like the cases were starting to build up. It originated in China. And of course, at that time people were still allowed to travel. So anybody who visited, China, could quite possibly come back with the virus. Right. So, like as we're, going about our daily lives, we start to see hand sanitizer like strapped to the poles on the bus. We start to see them at the bus stop. They did it wasn't mandatory, because if you couldn't make it, then that was fine. But they would do a like mass call. So like if your last name was begin with the letter A through M, you would go to the pharmacy and they would hand out, like a pack of like free masks for you to wear. So they would alternate it so that, people weren't crowding the pharmacy trying to buy masks. And when it really started to hit, there was no more soap on the shelves. Like you couldn't find soap anywhere or hand sanitizer. So my roommates and I are just kind of looking at each other like, is it really that serious? Because, anytime something happens, whether it's gas shortages, whether it's a tornado or anything, they start to buy, stuff off the shelf. And then, in some cases, it isn't that bad. So we were just like, well, let's just buy, like 1 or 2, just to be safe. We had this thing called coupon out there, where it was almost like Amazon, where you could, buy large things, at a decent price. So we brought like a case of soap, just in case, because we honestly thought it would just pass, like it wasn't a thing. But then when I was getting ready to leave my old job and to come into one of the places that I had actually interviewed for and actually got accepted, but because of the virus, they had to let me go. We started to notice that it was hard for foreigners to find jobs. Because out there, the jobs were plentiful. Like you could literally bounce around from school to school to school to school and not worry about it. But a lot of people were being turned away because of the virus. Okay. And so like my roommates and I were kind of looking at each other like, oh my gosh, like what happens if I can't get a job? Like what's happening? And then you start to see like stores shutting down, like the church that I was going to, like they all came to an executive decision to shut down the church. And so like, it was like, oh, this is serious, and then it started to spread. Sometimes what I would do while I was out there, I would take a trip to Japan, just because the flight would be like $50. So you can go out to Japan, fly to Japan, and the flight would be maybe 2 or 3 hours, depending on where you were landing in the country. And at that time, Japan had become high risk. So anybody who entered the country more than likely would come back with the virus. Right. So when I had to fly out there, I was like, okay, all right. Okay. But thankfully I made it back. But I had to be in quarantine for 14 days, which was fine, because I think I received my last paycheck. Looking back on it, I don't really know how I made through it. Just jumping from job to job. Like I always had money and I always had food. So, I thank God through that situation, because when I look back on it, it was crazy. But I had to quarantine, and we all quarantined inside our rooms. In the apartment that we shared, we had 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. Mm-hmm. So whenever any of us would come out, we would make sure to spray it down, and we would walk around with masks if we had to be in the same room.
Listen, we're gonna take this break, and what I want to say to everybody who's watching this in the 176 countries, listen, watch this commercial, because we're LLC and we're building. So you want a commercial just like this one to advertise your thoughts and your business on this channel. We'll be right back. Hey, listen, we got back already. Did you enjoy that commercial? Listen, reach out to us, Authentically You, and you too can have a great commercial, and we can do your business. We talk about that later. Listen, she just flew into Japan. Ain't that something? Hey, Japan for like $50, man. For real. But when she got there, things wasn't as nice as she imagined them to be. Go ahead. You can pick it up from right there.
So when I came back, I had to be in quarantine. You know, I didn't have any symptoms. So, you know, essentially everything was good. And, you know, the Korean government was doing a good job of, you know, keeping track of everyone out there. So like, say for instance, if you came in and you got tested and you tested positive and you took a cab somewhere, they would contact the cab driver so that he could come in and, you know, he could get tested and quarantined. And, you know, I believe at that time, don't quote me on it, but I think they took care of you during that time so that you wouldn't have to spend any money staying in quarantine. Like they made sure that you were fed and like, you know, very well taken care of. And it was great. You know, everybody was still being cautious. We, you know, walked around with hand sanitizer. We, you know, sanitized everything and we were good up until there was a really big surplus in cases, because there was there still are, but there's a really big cult in Korea. And the cult leader said that he had received a revelation from God for his members who were infected to go into businesses. Like, it didn't matter if it was grocery stores, it didn't matter if it was schools, subway systems, and intentionally spread the virus.
Wow.
So it went from, you know, maybe like 27 cases a month to like 200. Like it just surged. Yeah. And so we were like, oh my gosh, like they actually did this. And then to like kind of make it funny, but not, the leader got on a boat to, you know, get away from the virus. But it was like, weren't you the one to sit there and say, exactly. You know, like you were the one that received the word from God. So why are you running away? Right. You know, but but authorities caught him and, you know, brought him back before he could get, you know, too far. And so when that happened, they were able to bring, you know, like the cases down. One of the major cities that had gotten hit was Daegu. It was like maybe 1 or 2 hours away from where I live. And so right when they were getting the situation under control, they had a building to like quarantine people. And, you know, they were really doing their absolute best to make sure that the virus, you know, wasn't getting out of control. The same cult again got inside of the building. Wow. And so that whole entire city was under quarantine. Nobody could go to Daegu. Everybody had to stay outside of Daegu because the cases had just gotten out of control. So with that, my roommates and I are still sitting there looking at each other like, this is serious. Like, this is serious. And we had saw an interview of a university student who had came onto the news because she was urging young people to wear their masks. She was like, this virus does not discriminate. It doesn't, you know, like whether you're young, old, rich, or poor, like it doesn't. And she was talking about her experience with it. She said when she had caught it, she said it felt like that there were tiny shards of glass in her lungs. And so every time she would breathe, it would just feel like the glass was just cutting her lungs. You know, she said, she was like, there was a point in time where I just didn't want to take a breath because it was just too painful. And I believe at the time she was 19 years old. And so she was just there, just pleading with people, especially young people, to wear your mask, please. Like, no, she was like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. It is absolutely terrible. So in the midst of all of that, my roommates and I, you know, trying to make sure we can keep our heads above water. And I had found a job that I was really, really happy working with, but unfortunately, my visa was getting ready to expire. And the only way that you can renew your visa is if you fly out the country to go to that embassy and then come back in. Wow. Well, every country around that I could fly out to, except for America, wasn't open. And the issue with me coming back home was that I would have to fly in. I would have to quarantine for 14 days. I would have to drive up to DC where I would have to quarantine for 14 days, then come back home, quarantine for another 14 days, take a flight out there, quarantine for another 14 days. and then start back working. So I said, so by the time you do that, that is like 2 or 3 months worth of, quarantining. And not to mention, like, I'm running out of finances too. So I don't have the financial capability to do that. So when, we were trying to figure out, because the schools by then had shut down, a lot of kids were, online, and, the parents and, like the staff were monitoring the COVID cases. So like there was point in time where for like the first semester, I only had 2 kids in my class.
Wow.
Like that was it, because some of the parents just didn't feel comfortable sending their kids to school, and rightfully so,
Wow.
They were trying to figure out how to pay us, adequately, for our time, because the schools that I was able to work at, they depended on the funding of parents. So if you have less kids coming, that's, less money that you're being paid.
Absolutely.
But, they came through and made sure that we were all adequately paid. But then I got a call from the U.S. Embassy telling us to come home because the cases out there had just gotten so bad. Like just when everything would mellow out, something else would happen, and when they would try to get that under control, it'd be fine, then something else would happen. So they were like, we're calling all American citizens to come home. Like, you have to get out of Korea. So that in itself was just shocking. I will tell anybody I fought tooth and nail to make sure that I could stay, because I was just having so much fun. Like I had my own place, like it was essentially living my own life, and I was just having so much fun being out there. But it was a call, it was mandatory, we had to come home. So then I only had 2 weeks left to pack. So I had to take 3 years worth of stuff and pack it into boxes in 2 weeks and move out of my apartment. And it was really heartbreaking for me, because I loved my roommates, like they were also my church friends as well. And we would all sit down and pray together. We would talk to God about, one another, and, like our experiences and the things that we learned that God, was trying to teach us. And I knew that when I came home, I essentially, wouldn't have that anymore, because there was nobody else that had gone through the experiences that I did while I was in Korea. So, I shipped everything home, and my roommate really wanted to say goodbye to me, but she didn't get off work at the time to say goodbye. So we just kind of said like our goodbyes that morning, and like we were both like in tears, because like we just didn't, like we couldn't believe that this was happening. It was like our family was breaking up, So the day after that, I got on the plane. I let my family know that I was coming home, and I made my way out to the airport. I paid one last bill, because I had one last bill to pay before I got on there. And then I was on a plane, and I was making my way back to America. And like I was just so sad when I was just so sad. So yeah.
Wow, it is totally amazing. Listen, we're going to take another little break, and then we're going to be right back. Okay, here we are. We're back. Listen. It's got to be difficult when God calls you away, and he calls you away, and you get all acclimated to a place. You make the best friends in the world, and then all of a sudden, God, the same one you're having dinner with, that made the space in the bed for, and got the blanket for, now you got to pack all this stuff up and come back to America, which in itself is a culture shock.
Right.
After being away and living,
3 years away,
the way you're living and making the contacts that you make, and then God said, "Okay, I've taught you what you need to learn here. You got to go home." So it must have been difficult when you're getting back home, and what's supposed to be good for you is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And at the same time, heartbreaking. Well, God, you almost got me in the place I was when I was in high school. I'm back here, all of a sudden, making it on my own, and I got to call my mom and daddy and say, "Listen, I need to come home.
I'm on my way home."
Now,
you always come home.
I know that my niece and nephew was the jewels out of anywhere. Come on home, baby girl. You know we got you. We glad you home with all this mess coming up. I know that very same year is the last year we had family reunion.
Mm-hmm.
When you got back. So when we got back there, it was great to see you. We were surprised when we came bouncing down the steps. Wait a minute, you're supposed to be
amazing.
Yeah, you know. So now you're back in America.
Yeah.
And you got all these things that God done took you through in Korea.
Yeah.
Right.
And you get back to America, and Americans are nothing like Korea. Now you got to adjust all over again. How was
so it was a culture shock for me. It really was. Like when I came home, what you have to realize is that Korea is already in tomorrow. So I was flying into yesterday, and my sleep pattern, that was one of the hardest things I had to do when I came back, because I would stay up all night.
Wait a minute.
I was wondering, I knew he couldn't let that go.
So, okay, all right, this is good right here. So you was actually in today.
Right.
And to get back home,
you had to fly
into yesterday.
Yesterday. Yeah.
Now when God called you out, he called you out and you left yesterday and went until tomorrow, a brand new mercy, and all in your same day. But then he does it again, and it's in reverse.
Oh my God!
Now you got to leave this day to back up. Man, I'm trying to tell you, God, he makes it difficult, because then when you say, "I'm forgetting those things which are behind me and pressing towards the mark," well, God, you say press towards the mark, but you taking me back in time.
You put me in.
How am I supposed to deal with this? Wow. I got to live this day all over again. And when I woke up that morning, it was full of sorrow, because I had to leave one of my best friends. I had to leave my own stability.
Yeah.
I had to leave everything that you and I got built up. And now you're going to take me from this day when I'm supposed to be progressing and send me all the way back till tomorrow. Yesterday, I got to deal with it all over. Man, go ahead. You take it.
So, one of the things that I had a hard time with, and I believe that I had gone through a state of depression. I didn't identify it as depression. I kind of called it being homesick. But it was really difficult, because where, like I had the freedom to, and I will use this example all the time, if I wanted to go to Seoul, I would just hop on a bus and just go. Wow. If I wanted to go visit another friend in another city, I could take a cab, I could take, I could take a bus, I could take the train. Mm-hmm. So like having that, that liberty to just hop on transportation and just go. You don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have to say to anybody where you're going. You just get up and go. Mm-hmm. And then also being able to go from one place to another by walking. So we had a restaurant that we like to visit from our apartment, and it was like maybe a 10-minute walk, and it was a 24-hour restaurant. It didn't matter what time you went in there, day or night, it didn't matter. You could get, really good quality food at 2:00 in the morning, and, so not being able to have that. And then also my body had become accustomed to, their food. So when I no longer have, the ability to eat, kimchi or samgyetang, which is their version of like chicken and rice, or, just like a lot of what I felt like were the healthier options. And, like I kind of had to go back to, like Wendy's, spaghetti and, all of that. Like it messed me up for a while. And then, whereas I had the liberty to, even though I was a teacher, like I had the ability to jump from job to job. Like it didn't matter. Out there, teachers are, revered quite highly. So if you are an English teacher, like, you came with a lot of, a lot of respect. And then the fact that you were in a country for 3 years and, like it was just, you were held to a higher standard. Mm-hmm. Where here, if you don't have a teaching license, and I need to make that very clear, like I went out there with no teacher license at all. When you don't have a teacher's license, your options are very limited. There's only but so much that you can do. I knew that I didn't want to go work in an office anymore. Mm-hmm. Because I enjoy teaching, but I can't be in I can't be in the classroom because I don't have the accreditation.
Yeah.
So then it's like, well, what do I do? And, you know, the option of going back to school was a thing. And I knew I didn't want to do that. I'm like, I'm still paying off student loans. And I'm like, I'm not trying to include any more debt. But, and then that's where like what I had built up in Korea almost started to fall to pieces. Because now it's like, you know, God, while I was over there, it feels like I'm flying, but like now the weight is on me again. And essentially, not to say that I forgot about God, it was just, he was just put in, you know, in the back of my mind, because now I'm no longer in executive function where, you know, I feel comfortable where I'm at and like I can move. Now I'm in survival mode. So like now my instincts are kicking in, you know, like all of these thoughts are coming to my head. So I had lost God, you know, for a while, because now I'm like, I have to survive. And like I would, you know, my prayer would be on and off again, but I was still stuck in my own head, because it's like, you know, you just left home. And even though I grew up here, I'm dropped into a country that I no longer recognize. You know, I don't have the same, you know, I don't have the same things ready and available to me that I did over there. So now I have to start all over again. Yeah. And it was just, I think I was in that place for like maybe a year and a half. Because I just could not get it together at all. So like I would cry, you know, like I would wake up and pray, and like there were times where I felt like, you know, God wasn't listening. So then like I started to do my own thing, and then like it's just kind of like spiraled out of control after that. But now I'm better. Yeah. And now I'm starting to take action and remembering the things that I had gone through while I was over there, and, you know, praying about it. And most importantly, when I pray, I would thank God for bringing me through that, because there are a lot of people who couldn't have done what I did. And I know that the only reason why I was able to do that was because I had called out to God, because I had made the effort to put him in my life and to make sure that he had a seat, to make sure that he had a plate, he had a cup, he had somewhere to sit, you know, when I was at a restaurant. And so even though I had lost it, I was like, God, I'm not going to let this go. Like this is what brought me over, and it will continue to bring me over. So I'm going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that we get back to the place where we were before I left.
This is amazing. You said something that I just want to touch back on, especially for young people.
Yeah.
Because here in America, we think it's taboo to be saved and to be a Christian and to believe in God and do all these things, and yet get depressed. And somebody tell us that we lost God because we're in a state of depression or whatever the case may be. Right. And young people, you got to understand that there are things in life that happens
that knock you off your game.
That will knock you off your game. But God is always there, and He always come to us and asks us the question. Listen, I see that your countenance ain't what it should be. Yeah. I understand that you're going through some things. See, the problem before God don't just walk away from us. He deal with the issues. And he say, listen, why are your countenance down? Don't you understand that sin crouches at the door and wait for every opportunity to pounce on you?
Exactly.
And how we react is what makes the difference. We can either go out and slay our brother beyond our depression, or we can quickly ask God for his forgiveness. See, I'm loving this because, first of all, she's in a place where she's setting a place for God at the table, and then she's making a place in her bed and on the chair, and you just in tight fellowship with God. And then you're living in the day, and God is there, and then God shifts you, and you believe that somehow God left you because he shifted you back in yesterday. And because people tell us God is a progressive God, that he don't deal with us where we are. So we sit back and we live in our yesterday for a year.
Oh my.
we try to pray to God, but all of a sudden he's not there anymore. Not like he was in Korea.
Like
I saw you sitting at the table with me in Korea, but now you shifted me back into another day, and I can't catch up.
I can't catch up.
I saw what you did. You was with me all the time. I got up early in the morning and I read your word and I prayed to you early in the morning, and we went about the day, and I was being a success. And all of a sudden you call me out of that day and send me back to yesterday and knock me all the way back.
I love it.
Young people, you got to understand there are things that happen in life, and we feel like we're going to lose it. And people would tell us, because we feel that way, oh, you got to trust God. You don't even know. I trust him. You don't even know. I was just with him yesterday. My problem is that we're not even on the same page, because I'm living a day ahead of you. I'm still living a day ahead of you, but I'm in my reality, I'm back here with you in yesterday.
That's amazing.
And for me, this is unreal, because it's not that I think God has forgotten me. It's that I think somehow I slipped away from God because he's in tomorrow.
Yeah.
And because I'm in yesterday, I can't get back to tomorrow. I can't get back to my friend. I can't get back to tomorrow. I'm stuck in the day. So young people, sometimes we do go through things. We are feeling depressed, but you got to understand this is nothing that is not common to man, because the Bible tells us that we will suffer some things. We will go through some things. But after we have suffered a little while, then God himself shall pick us up. He shall strengthen you. He shall establish you. It's only a little while. We've been made endure for one night, but guess what? Joy comes in the morning, and when that morning comes and I wake up and finally my yesterday has met today, and I'm into existence right now. Somebody listen, I'm trying to I am trying to keep calm right now. But before
he starts to preach,
go ahead.
we're trying to wind this thing down now. So I think you already know this about me, Kristen, that I think you are a super cool, you are an inspiring, you're a beautiful young lady. I think you're just 100, okay? And I think your achievements and your accomplishments are worthy of being shouted out. And so what you've done in leaving your country and leaving all that has been familiar to you and moving to another country to teach their language and all that you've talked about and your entire experience, I want you now, as we bring this to a close, to speak to other young adults that are like fresh out of college or fresh out of high school about taking those leaps of faith, taking the time to spend, in God's presence, to get his direction for you, taking those leaps of faith and moving out on your passion and your purpose.
So with that, I say that before I went overseas, I thought stuff like this only happened to extraordinary people. Like I'm not extraordinary by any means. That's what I thought. And so like this could never happen. But I say that to say, when you have a relationship with God, and I strongly suggest for people my age, people younger, even people older, for you to have a relationship with him, because you never know what he has planned for you. Never in a million years that I think I would be over in Korea. Never I thought that I would be able to just travel to different countries and, to just live a life that was just so happy and focused on him. So if there is something that you really want to do, I wholeheartedly encourage people to hand it over to him, and he will make a way. I wanted to travel. I've been wanting to travel since I was young. But the way that I wanted to travel didn't meet the expectations of how I got there, in order for me to get there, because God saw that he saw it in my heart that I wanted to travel. But so instead of me just, working really hard and saving a whole lot of money, he's like, do what you do naturally and everything will come to you. So that would be my message for the young people is, you have to trust him. You have to trust him. He loves you. He wants to hear everything that you have to say, no matter what you've done, no matter the type of person that you think that you are. Because one thing that, and I'm about to cry, and one thing that astonishes me about God is that every time he looks at us, no matter what we have done, it is always eyes filled with love. no matter how bad you think that you are, God looks at you and is like, I love you. And to me, I feel like if people could just understand that and really talk to him, I mean, really have a conversation with him, you will be amazed at the things that he will have you to do. Your prayers will be answered. Your hopes and dreams will be fulfilled. But you have to take that first step and block out the world and literally focus on him. Because once you do that, everything starts to click and it starts to work. So.
Beautifully said.
Wow. Listen,
Beautifully said.
Listen. It's something when God steps into your life. I'm reminded right now of a song that I've come to love, and it says that this ain't no ordinary worship. It ain't no ordinary praise. The God I serve is greater than the ordinary. He's extraordinary. So I got to give him all I have. And this very moment. Listen, being a child of God make you extraordinary.
Yes.
So when he takes you away into a place and you are isolated with him, can't nobody understand your worship. This ain't ordinary. Can't nobody understand why I love him the way I love you. Wasn't there with me in Korea when I was isolated in the country by myself, and the only one I had to talk to was God. My worship is not an ordinary worship. It's extraordinary simply because I serve an extraordinary God. And listen, God takes us away.
Yeah.
And
isolates us.
And what I like about his isolation is that he proves to us that we are extraordinary. He proves to us that, listen, I loved you all along. I made you special. You just didn't know until I called you away with me. Come away, my love. The scriptures say, come away, my love, and let's spend some time together. And what God can do in your life, no matter how young you are, no matter where you want to go in life, God is not trying to hinder your dreams. He's trying to be a part of your dream. Matter of fact, God's dreams is bigger for you than yours is, than you even can imagine. If you would just take and say, yes, God, okay, I don't understand it right now, but I trust you.
Yes.
Amen.
I don't see you the way others see you, but I'm just going to put this plate here. I know people are going to think I'm crazy, but I need you to come into my life. Yes. Listen, God, I'm going to reserve this seat for you because I know that there's something that only you can give me, and there's a place that is special to you and I. My family has not touched the earth where you got to take me. It wasn't my mother. It wasn't my grandmother. It wasn't my grandfather. You made me extraordinary, and you called me to an extraordinary place, and you have anointed me with an extraordinary anointing, and I thank you for it. Listen, the way God has called you to go ahead, y'all.
You have been
y'all
such
close
a
out
blessing,
y'all messing me up.
I know he's about to cry too now.
Y'all messing me up. I don't want to be all soft and everything. My nephews be looking at this JR and all and be like, look at we're gonna get in here crying. Yeah, but y'all got to get y'all tissue too, because y'all know the story is extraordinary. And you know how God does.
Absolutely. I knew this would be an outstanding spotlight, but it has far exceeded what I could have anticipated. Thank you so much, Kristen, Mallory, my beautiful niece, for sharing your experience with us and for encouraging the young people to follow their dreams and their passions. And also, thank you for pouring what God has given you into the younger generation as a teacher. I think teachers are special people. I think teachers are anointed to do just that, because you are shaping the minds of our future. You know, so I applaud you. I applaud your accomplishments and your achievements. And I know God has greater things ahead for you. And we are agreeing with you in prayer that those things would be unveiled and revealed and manifested to you, so that you can continue to live out loud in your lane.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As we close out, part two, like I told y'all, she is family. So part 2 is going to be here in the studio live. So we
if we can wait that long.
Yeah. We're going to get her on down here for the weekend. We're going to record this session because I'm telling y'all, she's doing something even more fantastic even right now. I got to tell y'all, she done went into another lane that's not really common for women these days and doing the things that they doing. Yeah, come on, tell us how you getting buffed and you lifting and winning awards and stuff. But listen, I'm telling you, she's doing some things.
We see you.
Yeah. And we're going to go into all that and how that played into your recovery, how that played into your getting back to where you are with God and everything.
Yeah,
I look forward to it, sharing it with you all.
Awesome. So yeah, we're gonna hold that for the next time.
Yes, we're gonna hold that for the next time.
All right. It has definitely been our pleasure, and again, yes, you will be coming back because there's so many more layers that we need to unveil for the world to hear and to see of Kristen Mallory. Thank you so much for being part of Authentically You Imprint.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you for reaching out. You know, I love you guys to the moon and back. So anything that you all need, I'm here.
Listen, make this your season to live out your reason. Listen,
be authentically you. The question on the table is, how will you leave your imprint in this world? Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Be authentically you. Now is your season to live out your reason. Just be you. How you gonna leave your imprint on this world? Be authentically you. Now is your season to live out your reason. Just be you. How you gonna leave your imprint on this world?